9, 8.
You're watching Experience Comic Culture and Sales. Streaming live daily to Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter.
2, 1.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. I'm super excited to be able to chat with you guys today. As always, we're trying to give you all the information you need about projects that are coming out that you might have missed or that are on the radar for maybe adding to a pull box, because we focus on the very best of creation stuff out there so you can be the cool kid in the room. How's that? We love all comic books, whether it be the big two all the way to like people that are just like making their very first comic book. We've learned that it doesn't matter. There are really amazing things being created on every corner of this globe, and we're super excited to let you guys know about them. Today we've got back-to-back interviews. If you were here last week, you'll recognize one of our awesome creators. We get Marvin Wynn back, but he's also bringing along with him Grant Lankard, who couldn't make last week, so we're super glad they're coming. And then on our second half hour, we get to talk to Mary G. Puppo of Attic Door Media. And I'm excited to talk to them because I had never even heard of that company before. I feel like a dummy. Don't be a dummy like me. We'll see you guys right after this break. Hello, everybody. I see Chris H is here. This is a reminder that always is interviews are meant to be interactive. So don't be shy. If you have a question or you think of something while we're live, just type it in the comments. We're happy to ask those questions. We'll pop them up on the screen for you. And also just make sure to take notes so that you know what to order from your LCS. And we'll have a bunch of information that shows up in the comments also. So if we mention something, usually we'll pop it up there so you have a link. All right, everybody, welcome Grant and Marvin. All the way from, Marvin's from Pittsburgh. Grant, you Pittsburghing too?
I'm a Pittsburgh boy. Is
there a requirement to be part of Comicsburg to be a Pittsburgh native?
Not necessarily, but we will make fun of you.
What if we show up wearing black and yellow? Will it be okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, sometimes we let other people come in. You know, DP's not from Pennsylvania. He's from Ohio.
He's from Cleveland, but
he's in Cleveland. He's a Browns fan, so we made an exception for him.
Just have to have talents and be Pittsburgh adjacent.
Yes. As long as you can say that you're a fan of something from Pittsburgh, we'll let you in. Doesn't have to be sports. It can be other things. If you're a fan of bridges or something like that too, or rivers. You have a lot of those.
Lots of rivers, right? Because isn't downtown? Isn't there like 3 of them that mash up together?
Yeah, actually, there's 4. So you've got the 3 rivers you can see, and then there's a river underneath the fountain in the Point Park.
Oh my goodness! Mr. Tower is here. Hello, welcome. So I didn't ask this last time. I don't think. Like, how did Heroinberg get started?
So you mean Comicsburg?
Oh, Comicsburg. Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, I know it gets confusing because we have a comic book called Heroinberg, and then we also have Comicsburg. Yeah.
So I mean, I think that it just came together as a way for us to do conventions together. So like to have a name to put onto a label, or something to put onto a table, because as you know, that going to these conventions is expensive, and it's always cheaper when you can link up with a bunch of people. And I think it just grew from there. We were able to get Comicsburg as a label in the Diamond, and we've just been ramping it up from there and putting ourselves in as many good positions as we can.
So, okay, you mentioned expenses of conventions. I think that is a brilliant way to do it, really, because you can have more reasons for people want to stop by your booth if it's more than just one creator. And you've got a bunch of really great content out there. A lot of people don't think about this as one of the added benefits, and you guys might not even do this, but I found that like if I'm going to a convention, like the huge part of the expenses is like the hotel space. Like
Yeah.
if you can get a suite with somebody, you can like get 4 people in there pretty comfortably.
We do Airbnbs.
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah, because then we have your own exit, own entrances, and it's like most of the time it's a whole house, a whole apartment, and we can share instead of a hotel room.
Yeah, I don't want to share a room with Marvin.
No. I used to think that was the fun part. It was like it meant, I don't know, it felt like camping.
Yeah. Like when you get 10 people in a hotel room and like you're sleeping in shifts, or you get up to go to the bathroom, you're stepping on everybody as you go past.
That's real comics right there.
Yeah. San Diego Comic-Con in a hotel room with 20 people. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, people don't realize how expensive it is to go to that convention specifically. Like it's not even the money to get into the show. It's like I think my husband and I figure out we spend about $2,000 on hotel every year.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of dollars.
Yeah, and I mean that would just be hotel cost, and it's the space in the booth and the tables and the travel costs and food, because you got to eat something if you're going to be somewhere for 2 or 3 days or even 4 days. So I mean, like I said, it adds up over a while, and being able to do that with 4 or more people just bring those costs down, and you're sharing everything. So I mean, you're almost a quarter of the price that it would usually cost you 100% of the price to do.
Mm-hmm. So do you guys as a group, do you pool money to have a bigger like advertising footprint?
Well, that's what we're going to start doing is budgeting for marketing now. I mean, I think that we've hit, like, I don't want to say we've hit the roof or the ceiling of what we can do, but we're trying to branch out into other things. Like we're doing stuff with like wrestling programs here in the city, with art things in the city. So we're expanding out and trying to see what we can do for free for marketing before we start spending money on marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
There's a great book out there that I don't even know. They probably have updated it by now, called Guerrilla Marketing. And it's so funny. I think literally at the beginning of the book, it says, if you paid for this book, you're doing it wrong.
So we just have to run into a bookstore and run out with it then.
Or I think maybe it also says steal this book at the front. But you know, like if you're not sitting at the Barnes and Noble and just like taking notes, you don't understand guerrilla anything.
Yeah, but maybe we want to try to support somebody who puts something out there that's useful to everybody too. So.
Oh yeah. So how did you guys all meet each other? Was it at conventions? Did you just meet each other on the circuit?
So it was, I'm trying to remember, I think it was Herrenberg who contacted me on Facebook, and we weren't friends on Facebook. So, you know, when you're not friends with somebody on Facebook, that message goes into the ether. And I just happened to be clicking there. It was like 3 months after the message got to me, like, oh, okay. And then I originally met him at the Phantom Idiotic Comics here in Oakland and Pittsburgh. That's near University of Pittsburgh. And how do we meet, Grant? I don't even remember.
I saw The Edge and Herrenberg in Geekadrome, the comic book shop. And I remember I bought a copy of each, and I emailed you guys and just was like, hey, I didn't know there were other people in Pittsburgh making comic books. And it's been a match made in heaven.
And we originally met DP at the Steel City Con. He does another podcast called Nerd Cyclopedia, and we end up being on his show. So that's how DP became part. And then it was like 6 months later, he's like, "Oh, I'm doing a comic now." I was like, "Cool, like, come on in. Let's see what we can all do together."
Yeah. So you met him before he even started Theme of Thieves?
Yep.
Yeah, we should mention that we have another creator who has a Kickstarter right now. It's Theme of Thieves, and I will look up the.
I can get that link right now.
Okay, I'll let you do that then.
Because I had Kickstarter open because I had yours up.
Grant, do you have a background in something related to comic books, or do you like, is this like your extra thing that you do as your big creative love?
So I wanted to go into making comic books straight out of high school, and everybody told me it was impossible to make money doing that. So I went to school for graphic design with the idea of thinking, maybe I can, work on comic books on the side. And then when I graduated from graphic design, I realized like I hated everything about it.
Oh no.
And so I always wanted to, like, I never had the energy to make comic books when I got home from work because I hated all of the jobs that I had so much. I would just end up falling asleep after work. So during the quarantine, I realized, you know what, if I don't make a comic book now, I'm probably never going to. And so I tried to get attached to other people's comic books. Like, I put posts up on Facebook saying, "Hey, I'm an artist and I'm looking for a writer." And these writers, they would send me these proposals that were absolutely horrible.
Describe a horrible proposal. I just so for people that are out there that are interested in hooking up with someone else creative, what is an example of a bad?
I mean, the one thing that really put me off to the one comic book proposal that I read was it was a spousal abuse situation, and the writer was turning that into a joke, and I was like, oh my god, I can't draw. I don't want to be associated with this comic book.
No.
Yeah, that was. I mean, there were other ones, but I think I blocked them out of my memory.
Probably a good thing.
Yeah. So I said, if these guys have the self-confidence to try to turn their ideas into a reality, well, why don't I have that self-confidence? So I resurrected the idea that I had for a superhero when I was like 12, and that was Beowulf. And I just finished the 6-issue miniseries Beowulf, and in between issues, I also did a horror anthology called Memoirs of the Morbid, and now my new comic book that's coming out is called League of Crystals.
So, did you end up for those other other creative endeavors, your Beowulf in the anthology? Did you end up just figuring out how to do writing? Because I know you were looking for a writer, or did you actually find a good match?
No, I ended up writing them myself. Yeah, I think it turned out pretty good.
This is one of those things that, like, sometimes just like the father of necessity, right? It's just like, I want to have this made. Because I have a very sweet employee who, he's a writer. He's like, I've written like 30 issues of my comic book, but I don't know where to go from here. I don't know how to connect with a artist because, he's a struggling young person. He doesn't have like $1 bajillion to offer to anybody.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I feel his struggle because that's the way I started in the 90s. It's just like someone be willing to do what I can, what I can pay. I know that you're worth more, but please help.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be tough. I mean, I understand the artists who say, you know what, I can't work without money up front, because the truth of the matter is, number one, you're asking them to do a massive amount of work.
Yep.
And not only that, but a lot of times when people say, oh, I'll give you money down the road, down the road never ends up happening,
Right. Well, it was the old, when I make a profit, like, dude.
When I make profit's a different whole thing. You can't be aiming for profit.
Yeah, you can't guarantee a profit on anything, man. But I mean, you like depending on who you find, you could find someone who's willing to work pro bono, or if they like the idea, hey, I'm in. Just whatever you can give. So I mean, it's putting yourself out there and trying to find someone who's on your same wavelength. Like you might not find a Jim Lee or a superstar artist, but you'll find someone that's going to be willing. You have to put yourself out there. Like there's artists all over Facebook, all over Twitter, all over Instagram that probably would jump at the chance to work on something if they believe in it.
Absolutely.
So take a chance. It's not like all they can do is say no.
Yeah, I
Grant,
just. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I just read a post in one of the groups that I'm in. The guy said, "I've been looking for an artist for 3 years,"
Wow.
and I remember I didn't say this because I'm not a jerk, but I thought the thing that I thought when I saw that was, okay, if you've been looking for an artist for 3 years, maybe the problem is you, not the artist.
Yeah, you might be right onto something there.
Mhm.
It's like, are you offering a monies?
Yeah. Or that profit deal.
Yeah.
But I mean, with Kickstarter now, like you have that opportunity. Like you can just have someone do like 5 or 6 pages to the book, and then you put it up on Kickstarter, and that could get you the rest of the funding to finish paying the artist for the book too.
Yeah, we live in a really great era. Like,
Don't we?
yeah, back in the day of like communication was relegated to, if you were really, really cool, you had a pager.
Mm-hmm.
And you had to like find people by meeting them at a convention and then just
Yeah.
calling them on what's called a phone. The landline back in the day.
Yeah. I mean, I always think about that. I mean, before Kickstarter, if you wanted to be an indie comic book creator, it involved going very far in debt. So, whenever I get aggravated at Kickstarter or social media or whatever, I try to remind myself of that.
Yeah, I told people that minimum of 3,000 copies for getting printed, if you ever wanted to like hope to be able to sell them for something that Diamond might pick up.
Mm-hmm.
I used to tell people, I was like, you're essentially buying a car.
Yeah.
When you were printing back in the 90s. You bought a car, and then, because it did sit in your garage until you sold them.
Or you rented a storage space.
Yeah.
So that's even more money out of your pocket.
True. Gotta be smart about that stuff. So Grant, how much do you love cryptids, and what's your favorite one?
My favorite cryptid is Mothman. Just because he's the strangest one. He's not. He's kind of a mystery, right? Like you can't really figure out what his motivations are, right? Like he always shows up when bad things happen, but you don't know if he's causing them or if he's trying to warn you or what, right?
Yeah. So that's his real deal. He doesn't interact with anything. He just shows he's seen in maybe photos or in person if something tragic is happening.
Yeah. Now the weirdest cryptids, because that's what I love that too. I can't remember the name, but there's, what was it, the Fresno creeper, I think it's called, is just a pair of legs.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
I
think it's called the Fresno creeper.
On porch videos or something?
Yeah. They actually have like surveillance videos of a pair of legs running down the street.
That's
The predator.
Fresno.
The Fresno Nightcrawler. Thank you.
Fresno Nightcrawler. That is crazy. All right. Everyone out there watching, put in your favorite cryptid because I'm interested in what you guys like.
What is your favorite cryptid?
My goal in my life is to see an actual chupacabra because I live close enough to where they supposedly hang out. And I think that of all of them, that's the most likely to be real. It just seems like why not? Why not? There's definitely something out there with eat chickens and looks like a mangy coyote. Sasquatch.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I'd probably go with Sasquatch because he's the $6 billion man's best friend.
Sasquatch also could be real, or one of the other versions of him, right? Yeti, or.
I mean, I think Sasquatch is probably the most realistic because, I mean, he's not that much different than like a gorilla, right?
Mm-hmm.
He just walks a little bit straighter than a gorilla and has slightly bigger feet.
We guess. We don't really have any actual footage of him. For all we know, he could be all hunchy.
Mm-hmm.
Did you say what your favorite cryptid was, Jen?
Oh, mine was the chupacabra.
Oh yeah, you said that. Sorry.
No one else has one. Sad. Okay. not even the Jay. Don't have you. I'm sure you have one. So what made you think of this awesome book that you've got?
One day I was looking at like a list of different cryptids, and it reminded me of like back in the day when you had like the comic book cards. Remember back in like the 1990s when they had like Marvel and DC both had trading cards for different superheroes.
Yep.
That's what it reminded me of. I remember seeing that and thinking, hey, these cryptids would make kind of a cool superhero team.
It's like it makes me think a little bit of let's see, other as like Hellboy's group, which are
the Bureau of Paranormal. What is it? The Bureau of Paranormal something
division. Like is it like is it BPT?
BPD.
BPRD.
Right.
So there's an R in there. Someone out there smart. Tell us what it is. But yeah, okay. So is your book laid out like kind of like a police procedural where every issue is a new mystery to be solved?
No, it's this is a 4-issue miniseries. They're going up against an alien invasion, but like because this is the introduction for oh yes, Lefty has it correct.
Bagged. So guys.
Like you want the introduction to be a little bit of action, but also like a little bit of like telling the origin of the story. And also, Chris has mentioned that the Thunderbird was a massive bird who could control the weather, and that comes from Native American stories.
Sounds like something from Godzilla.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't ever want to meet a skinwalker, whatever those really are. If the first peoples are scared of them, I am too.
Mm-hmm. They would be like werewolves, right?
Oh, it's something completely else. They are humanoid, but can take other forms. And
oh, okay. Interesting.
They don't like to talk about them very much, so I don't know 100% what they do. They're just like, don't talk about them; they'll show up.
There's one of them right over there.
Ah! So, Grant, are you I don't know, is a person that subscribes that some of these things might be real, like the object, the aliens, for example? Do you believe they're out there?
So that's the question that I'm always afraid of, because I've been going on like some cryptid podcasts and stuff, and the truth of the matter is I love cryptids and I find them really fascinating. I'm honestly not sure if they really exist. I think maybe at one time Sasquatches or Bigfoot or Big Feet, however you put that,
Big Feet
existed. I don't know. Like, there's been one really good video of Sasquatch like in the last 40 years. And okay, I should say one really good video of Sasquatch in the last 40 years. I feel as much as people have, people really have explored the woods in the United States. I feel like if Sasquatch existed, they would have found him by now.
Well, I mean, whenever they takes a picture of them, he just takes their phone, right? Give me that. He just collects their phone so they can say, well, we saw them. Where's the pictures at? He took our phone.
Did you ever? Do you know who the stand-up comedian Mitch Hedberg is?
No.
He has a joke. He said, "My theory is that Bigfoot is actually blurry, and that's why the photographs actually always end up like that." And then he goes, "To me, a big blurry monster is scarier than just a regular one."
He's onto something, probably. What do you mean? One tree, no double tree. Heck yeah. Oh, goodness.
Old Mitch Hedberg joke.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
I was like, I'm gonna get it. Nope, not gonna get it. So when is your Kickstarter live right now for?
It's going live at 9 p.m. tonight.
Oh, we're really close. So I think we posted up the link, but let's post it up again because this sounds like my jam.
Do you mind if I share?
Oh yeah, can we do some share screen real fast?
Well, I was gonna share. I'm going to launch the Kickstarter on my YouTube channel. Do you mind if I post that?
Not at all. Go ahead.
Found it. And I put it in the private chat. And
If
that'll be
from something that's not YouTube, just so you know, we figured out Bureau for Paranormal Research and Defense for the Hellboy. I realize that sometimes when we type things in, that if you're not watching on that platform, they just don't see it if we don't say it.
That could be a good trivia question for a trivia show, because I wouldn't remember what that was.
Mm-mm. Yeah, we have on our network, we have a really, really good trivia person named, he goes by Ed Weird, but his name's Edward. But he is horribly hard to stump. He's always the person that's winning everything. We almost have to weigh him down with pool noodles or something so he can't answer.
Pop culture.
Anyone have any questions? We got another minute or so.
Do you want to talk about the Edge at all, Marvin?
Oh, I got to talk about it. I mean, if you want, I think we have time to play it. If you want to play the video, it's really short.
Which video? The one for Sasquatch or for League of Cryptids?
The Edge.
Oh, the Edge. Okay.
Let's do it.
Do you want me to play it, or Jay can play it?
I gotta remember which one it is. Hold on just a second. Sorry.
Huh?
He's got it. He's like, I'm fast, but I'm not that fast.
It was the second one I sent you, or the second one in the private chat. That's it.
Sir, the Revenant is back.
I have played a puppet far too long. First, you will suffer. Then, you will die.
We have to stop him.
Target in range.
When I give the order, storm the building.
We are in position.
Well, well, well. Looks like someone wants to play. No, 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 no! Let's play. This isn't just a fight. This is war.
I love it. Everyone looks like they get a code named except for poor Blaine. He can't hide at all. You're just gonna look him up. Ouch.
Looks like chaos
is coming.
We've been trying to talk Marvin into animating an entire issue like that.
I mean, for a little while, there was like motion comics were a thing. I think maybe it takes a lot of time to do.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, it's really expensive, and I don't think anybody like any of those, even Marvel or DC, because they did a few of them and they released them on DVD, and then they were like, "Nope, we're done with this," because I don't think they sold very well. So
Awesome. Hey Jay, do we have our other guests in the weight room? I'm just making sure.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. I'm just gonna say I'm gonna see yous guys. So no, that's wrong. You told me this last one. Yuns.
Yins.
Yins.
Use would make more sense. I don't know where yins came from, but that's the
It's
phrase.
perfect. It rhymes with Jen, so I say it's okay. All right, I'll see Jens later. Thank
All
you.
right, see you next week. Okay, thank you.
You know how when you go to Comic-Con, after Comic-Con, you go to the hotel bar, and there's a whole bunch of people playing music and dancing, and you've got Pikachu and Lara Croft Tomb Raider doing the cha-cha slide just down from Deadpool and Batman and Wonder Woman? That's every Saturday night over on the Experience Twitch channel. Join Taji Beats for the EXP Dance Party, exclusively on Twitch, twitch.tv/the_EXP. Why was Princess Zelda sad after watching a bunch of YouTube videos? She couldn't find a link in the description. We'll stop if you subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's super easy. Click subscribe and click the bell when you do. And thanks for supporting the EXP.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back. We get to talk to someone really awesome from a company that I haven't been exposed to yet. So this feels really weird to me because I feel like I've sought everybody out. So now I'm so happy today to talk to someone new. This is from Attic Door. Did we get this right? Attic Door Media. Mary Popo.
Hey, hi.
Oh, I love you already. Oh my gosh.
Is it the cat ears?
Best.
Thank you.
I love it. Well, how in the world have I not heard of y'all's awesome stuff? When I saw the press stuff, I was just like, what have they been hiding from me?
We are so bizarrely good at like slipping under the radar like everywhere. And I don't know how exactly, because I feel like we're everywhere all the time. And then it feels like every 3 to 5 months I find like a new pocket of comic book people. And it's like, okay, well, we're gonna be here now. All right, bye.
Well, that's kind of perfect though, right?
Yeah.
If you find everyone all at once, then it's really hard to grow your audience. This is perfect because the people that watch our shows are very, very supportive of the creative vision, independent books especially. And they're not hyper focused on big two stuff at all. So I'm super excited to hear about what you guys put together.
I'm super excited to talk to you. I feel like I had just found you guys even like a couple weeks ago, maybe. I was like, oh, that's really cool. And then today I got the message like, hey, do you want to do an interview at 5:30? I was like, oh, sure. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It's interesting when you see people that have kind of like really gotten a giant audience for this kind of space, for whether they're doing live on YouTube or Twitter, Twitch, or Instagram or whatever. It looks like it's so easy. Like you're like, oh, I'll just jump in and have 1 million viewers. And that is just not the way this thing works at all. It's so hard. There's a lot of work in doing comic books and or comic content.
It's so strange because you feel like, you know, when I was growing up reading comics, I would have given anything to find like more comic book fans and to talk to more comic book fans, and that's all I wanted to do was talk about comic books. So that the space is so big, especially in an indie creator space, is so wonderful. It's so heartening. It makes me so happy. But it's also like, how do you find everyone when the space is this big? It's because there's just so many, and it makes me so happy. But it's also like, but I want to talk to everybody all the time. So why are we doing this?
It's just like we can't hide out. Maybe it's because we are, as a group, a little more introverted than the normal.
Yeah. Comic. Yeah. I feel like I'm in all of the fandom spaces where it's like we're all just a little bit introverted and we all want to talk to people, but no.
When will we learn that we're all safe for each other?
Right? Like, I just it doesn't make sense. Like, even Grant, like I popped in a few minutes early for tech checks, but I saw Grant and I was like, oh, there's Grant. I know Grant from Comics Launch. Like, so I'm starting to like see familiar names now as well, and it's like, yeah, we're just gonna all circle the same spaces, and yeah, it's fun.
So, okay, so tell me your comic book origin story. So for you specifically, what was your first comic book? How did you enter the comic space?
My first comic book was Chris Claremont's Dark Phoenix Saga, and I was 8 years old.
Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah, it was. So my dad growing up was a huge nerd. He's still a huge nerd, but he was a super huge nerd, and I always wanted to read his comic books, and he had like old issues of like the Avengers and the Fantastic Four, and I was like, I want to read your comics because you read comics and I want to read your comics. And he's like, no, you're not touching my books, you're tiny and have jam hands. And so one day he's like, I know you're just gonna wreck my books. So one day he brought me into our local comic shop, and I saw the really, really pretty, the Chris Claremont Dark Phoenix with the spouting out of the water, right? I was like, I want that book. I want to read that book. And he was like, sure. My dad has not read a single X-Men comic in his life. Had no idea.
He picked you the most uplifting, bright, sunny rainbow story ever.
Sure did. And so I went home. It was already a little bit older at that point. So like I had the full run, the whole saga, and he bought me the whole run, and I went home and I read it. And I don't know why I was off. It must have been a holiday or something. And my mom came home, and I was like, Mom, look at this. Dad got me comic books. And she's like, that's nice, sweetie. And then she started flipping through it, and she was like,
what did your dad do?
What'd you do? So then I got more age-appropriate comics, which was New Mutants, which was not a hell of a lot better.
With Demon Bear? I don't know.
Yep. Because what happened, I think, in my parents' brain was, oh, there are children on the cover, so this comic is for children. And then I got to read the whole Demon Bear saga. For kids. I don't know what's going on. So I just drove like straight hard mode, just all the way in, first try. But I mean, Chris Claremont, like jumping in on Chris Claremont when you're a kid is a great way to jump in. Like even with especially with no context, right? Because I didn't know anything. And I still have those issues. Like they still live on my bookshelf. But that's how I got started. And I think I read mostly X titles after that for a really long time.
Oh yeah. All right. So my origin story is also Chris Claremont X-Men. But I don't think it was Dark Phoenix. I think I came in a little bit later. I'm one of those weirdos that didn't really have exposure to comics until I was in graduate school. So I was already like 21 before I was really like, oh my gosh, what are these beautiful things?
Honestly, however you get here, as long as you're here, like that's really, really it is just we're happy to have everybody. Like comics are for everyone, and especially the Xbox.
I'm glad your dad was your Mr. Miyagi.
Me too. It was just such a funny revelation of like, oh, this will be fine. How bad could this be?
So okay, so you were exposed to comic books early. Mm-hmm. How long did it take you to be inspired to be like, I want to make some of this?
So much longer, much longer, until I was in like my mid-late 20s, because I think I was convinced that comics were not something that you could do on your own. They're not something that you could like, because Kickstarter and indie press is something that's still in the grand scheme of creative entities and fandom are really new. So I it must have been 2016 or 2017 that we were like, yeah, this is going to be a comic book. This is what this is going to be. This is where we're going to head. So it took a lot, and I'm so glad that like we did, because this incident report could not have been anything but what it is. And I know because I tried everything. So it took 20 odd years of doing that to make it a comic.
Well, it just means that you really were passionate about it and you took your time doing it right. That's what that means.
Yeah.
So did you find your creative team like because they were in your friends group, or
I did?
Yeah.
So the Addict Door team is myself, Brian, Mark, and we brought in Cece, who kind of was like adjacent to us for a little while and was like, all right, fine, I want to do this, and I'm in. But Brian and I had been playing a tabletop game together in college called Champions, and it was a superhero game, and it was set in the Marvel universe, and we were X-Men because there's a running theme in my life. And independently of each other, we were like, man, this is so great. What if we, change this, or what if we did that, or what if we did that? And so we independently had been thinking about it for a couple of years before we synced up, and we're like, hey, I just had this like thought, and wouldn't it be cool if maybe, I don't know, we were trying to do a thing, and we were both on board together. And like I said, we tried everything. It was a novel, it was a duology, then it was a series, then it went back to be a novel, because my background is primarily in prose. Brian tried to do a feature treatment on it, which didn't. We were like, this is too big, this doesn't work right. We tried to make it a television pitch. We tried to, like, we had a, back in, I think it was like 2014 or 2015, HBO had an open pitch session, and we were trying to pitch to HBO, and it just kept falling through and nothing felt right. And that's when Mark came to us. He's like, why don't you guys make it a comic book? He's like, this is a comic book. Why are you trying to make it anything but a comic? You guys love comics. Go back to it. So we've been friends a long time. We've been working this a long time, and they're lovely, lovely people whom I love with my whole heart.
You mentioned a term I've never heard before. Maybe it's because I'm not in the more novel space, but what is a duology?
It's a 2-part book series. So I try to make it one, and then I started speccing it, and I was hitting the like 1,000-page, 1,200-page mark, and I'm like, no one's gonna buy something that's literally bigger than a brick. So maybe I'll just split this in 2. And then that didn't work either. So,
like, if this hits big, maybe you can just make it in all of its forms.
That's the goal. We do have treatments and castings, and like I said, Brian's a really big film guy, so he really is like on top of, if we do this, this is where I would love for this to live. Your blue sky, right? You're like your blue sky goal. So we have all those kind of like sitting in our back pockets of what we would want and how we would want to do that. And we have the benefit of not being the first group into this game, which is also really, really great. There's so many talented indie creators out there who are doing all kinds of, I don't know what animal that is. Okay. Yeah, that's a Kaylee. She is nosy. She just hangs out somewhere. Yeah. She's a precious girl. But yeah, so we always have ideas. That's the one thing we're never short of, is ideas and plans and hopes.
So tell me, so it sounds like you guys came up with this idea while sussing around what ifs about X-Men.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me a little bit about the backstory of the series.
So the backstory of the series is really quick and to the point, and that is what what if the Registration Act did what it was supposed to, and what if it worked in a good way, in the best way? What if, so in our world, they're called chimerans, they're superpowered individuals. They revealed themselves in the 1940s, and immediately world governments got on board and put practices in place, not just to protect the general public, but superpowered individuals, and then put systems in place to help them as well. One of the things I myself have never really jived with the Mutant Registration Act, the Superhero Registration Act, is that it was all about protecting everyone who didn't have powers. Well, not everyone who has superpowers wants to be a superhero. That's not, I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't, but there are people who do. Our main character, for example, is a social worker. She uses her powers to help people. And so it really just came from, what if this worked? What if this worked, and what if it was used for good? Which I think is something that we don't always see in comics.
Yeah. It's like, I think the first gut reaction is usually distrust, and then how do we weaponize it? It's like,
exactly.
I don't know why. It's like, it's immediately like, how do we weaponize this?
When Brian and I were playing our game, one of the arcs that we played through was, of course, the Registration Act and Civil War. And Brian, took the Tony Stark side. He's like, yeah, we need to have a list. This is going to help people. It's going to protect people. And I'm very much Team Cap. People are going to weaponize this. People are going to we don't put people on lists. That's how you have problems. That's how danger erupts. That's how you create otherness in society. That's how you create what Marvel has created, right? What has happened with X-Men in all of the subsequent years.
Yep.
And so I'm very anti-Registration Act, and he was like, okay, so what happens? How do we get you to that space? And I was like, it has to protect everyone. It has to serve everyone, and not on a US scale, not on a state level scale, but on a global scale. So we took a look at like NATO and the United Nations and how they're structured, and how do we have a cohesive way to help people across borders.
That's amazing. Now, you did touch a little bit on the idea that there might be people that are superpowered that don't want to, that's not their happy space. So in your universe, how does that get dealt with? Are they just allowed to live in anonymity?
They're just, so the way it's structured is you should register with, so the International Chimeran Administration is our government that registers stuff. But that list is private. That list is private. It's not easily accessible. You can make it public. But when you do, there are resources. So you can, in issue 1, we have a dad who's, it's one of my favorite bits, whose toddler starts to fly.
I saw those images. That was awesome.
And so there are just flight classes, the same way you would, I'm gonna hate saying this, maybe take a pet to a pet training class. There are flight classes and power training classes for your kids.
I figured it's like taking them to aqua tots to teach them how to swim.
You teach them to swim. If you have to keep them on a harness like a balloon for a couple weeks, sure. I love balloon. I love Balloon Baby so much. It's one of my favorite things. But yeah, so they're there to help. There's, maybe if you have fire powers, there's like a code when 911 gets called and the fire team shows up a little bit faster. And there's special phone numbers that you can call for help if you're like, hey, this has gone seriously wrong. The normal cops aren't going to cut it here. What do? You can call in people who are specifically trained to deal with this.
I love that idea. And so this is I haven't read anything, and I've only looked at the images that thumb through.
It's fair.
The things I noticed is that your logo is really cool because it has a couple different like pieces of like fire or water. And my gut reaction to kind of like family imagery that was that wouldn't it be funny if part of the thing was that, you know, like when people have football teams or like a house divided, if like someone got married and one of them was a water power and one was a fire power, like what would that look like for as a kid?
So I think about that a lot. I do. I really, really do. I think way too much about superpowers and how they interact with each other. And there's nothing like explicit sort of in this set of issues about like conflicting power sets in a familial setting. But the main character does have a family. Her family does have a variety of superpowers. I want to say all told, there's like 4 or 5 different power sets within her family tree.
Oh, wow.
So sucks to be her a little bit. But it's so fun. It's just so fun. And I do love that logo. I believe it was designed by Brant Fowler, did our logo. And I love it. I love it so much. They're fun little icons too to just grab and use for things.
I do. I don't know if I've ever read any book that had super powered individuals that there wasn't this overarching with power comes responsibility, so you have to do stuff whether you like to or not, or the distrust issue, or this like it feels like this is the first time I've heard of like kind of a healthy space for superheroes that can to do good or just be a normal accountant, and that's fine too.
That was my hope. And so one of my explorations at the game and that I like to kind of dig into within the space is, you know, you don't have to do good, but what makes you want to do good? And when you have a power to do good and you want to do good, you can. Obviously, that's very much an option. But just because you can doesn't mean you have to. Just because you can doesn't mean that you should. And so Anne in particular, that's kind of like the center of her conflict is she has the ability to make a difference and she knows that she can make a difference. And it's just a matter of how and where she wants to. And like how, because as I said, she's a social worker. Her power is fire projection. That's a really that doesn't really jive with her job. And it's, how do you make those things work and how do you square up with what is ostensibly an incredibly dangerous ability and gift with this very, I want to help you, I want to protect you, I want to be available and keep you safe, this very nurturing side of her.
That's so awesome. Okay, so it looks like it's that this Kickstarter launch that's coming is a 1 through 3. So if you don't have any of them, you can just jump in and get a big chunky universe. That's awesome.
Yes. We also, I'll double check to make sure we also have short stories, which were a really big, important part for me, because I do really love making the world feel lived in. So we have a collection of, I think it's 6 short stories from different writers from everywhere. Mike Connell is in there. Phil Buthorn is in there. And it's just a bunch of different scenarios. Daystar has a story in there about a guidance counselor who has to speak with a young girl, I believe it's a young girl, who's going through some mental issues and has abilities that are not necessarily, conductive to that. So we'll have issues 1 through 3, and then also the collection of 6 short stories available.
All right. So every comic book, of course, has a conflict. So if everybody is getting along and everyone is hunky-dory, what is the conflict of this? The heart of your series?
So the heart of the series in this first arc is that things are not hunky-dory, right? People are still going to people at the end of the day. And just because you have the infrastructure for things to go well doesn't mean that they will. So the very first issue, small spoilers, opens with Anne's former work partner being killed on assignment. And the investigation of how did this happen? We had all the things, everything was in place. How did this happen? And it starts to unravel in a way that Anne couldn't know because she wasn't involved, and brings in outside forces and kind of unravels a whole web for the ICA with new power sets emerging and people slipping kind of under that radar. It's like, oh, well, the system's in place. How do these loopholes work?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because we're human.
Because we're human. Because at the end of the day, we're human. And yeah.
I love it. It's like, for me, it's really, really tough to get me excited about anything that's superhero because I'm so in love with, for myself, mostly Marvel stuff. So it's like you're the first person I've talked to in a long time that I'm just like, okay, well, I'm definitely gonna have to read this because it's what I learned from X-Men. It's like it's about family. So if you don't care about a character, it doesn't matter what cool superhero things they've got going on. If it's all about the battle, I'm not really your girl. If it's about what are the implications of the battle and how it's affecting them for the long term, I'm your girl. So this sounds like my kind of jam.
I'm very, very excited to hear that because I am the same way. You know, I will scream during that big MCU fight scene at like with everybody else. But then you have Monica hit us with, you weren't there. You left. And it's like, oh God, just rip my heart out. Why don't you? Please. Like when you get to like the meat of that and that, because that's a very superhero thing. And you see it in X-Men. You see it in Batman a lot too, with all the Robins, is what are people willing to do for family and what makes people do what they do and what breaks people. I always really want to kind of push that button.
Mm-hmm. There's always a breaking point. When does it go live?
Friday. Thursday? The 15th. I don't.
12th today.
15th is Thursday. Yes, Thursday. Sorry. Originally we were discussing and it was going to be Friday. And then we're like, Thursday's good. Thursday's fine. We'll do Thursday.
It's perfect. Thank you so much, Mary. I found a kindred spirit.
Thank you so much.
We'll see if we can get people to click on it till they get notified when it gets live. And you'll definitely see me on it. So
thank you so much.
Thank you guys. Thank you so much for joining us again for Talking Shop. If you know of some cool, awesome things like the things that Mary makes, and I don't know about them, please let me know. I don't know how I haven't had this in my life, and I'm super happy for this. So thank you guys for joining us, and we'll see you guys next week, same time, same place. Stay tuned. We got more stuff coming. Bye.
Bye.
Join the party. Head over to our Linktree to find all the links for everywhere the experience is all the time.